All right, Nick, let's talk about the Detroit Lions. This is a team gone through a little bit of a tough patch, having to let go Cam Sutton. That hurts. I think overall, probably the right move with the circumstances surrounding the situation. But now the Lions are left looking for some more depth at the cornerback position, but they didn't have to look too hard. They had a guy that was on the roster last season that they decided to bring back. And I think this is a really smart move. Let's get into the article. We can talk more about it on the other side. This from Adam Schefter on X. It says the Lions are re-signing free agent cornerback Kindle Vildor to a one-year deal per source. He reunites with Deshae Townsend, his former DB coach in Chicago, who's now with the Lions. His agents Kevin Connor and Robert Brown of Unisports Management have confirmed the deal. Nick, I think this is a great move when you're looking for veteran depth, a guy that's familiar with the scheme from last year at a little bit of time where he made some plays last year, got some playing time, and is intimately familiar with the DB coach and knows what he is all about. I think this is about as good as it gets when you can bring in veteran depth. I think this is a really great move by the Lions. Curious what your thoughts are on this move. But Lions fans, in the comment section below, the draft is ever present, just getting closer and closer, mere weeks away. I want to know in the comment section below, what would you like for the Lions to do in that first round of the draft? Let us know, what are your aspirations for that first pick for the Lions in the comment section below. But Nick, what are your thoughts on this latest move by the Lions?
I think is another just phenomenal example of a quality GM work from Brad Holmes. It's all about understanding where you are in terms of the process of your team, in terms of achieving a championship, right? There's a bunch of different phases you're in. Obviously, there's the rebuilding phase, which Lions fans, of course, are very well aware of. You have a different strategy with how you sign and who you re-sign in that phase than you do if you're in the middle phase and you're trying to break out and make a playoff run going from bad to good. And it's a completely different strategy if you're in the championship window phase, which the Lions, I think, pretty obviously are in. I think 2024 is a title window year for Detroit. I think 2025 is as well. I think after that, there's some salary cap things that'll come into the fold. I think they'll still be good in the future. I just think it'll be a different team. But focusing on this core, I think 2024 is probably their best chance to win a title in a very long time. And there's a couple factors you want to really focus on if you're in your title window, trying to bring players in, certainly as depth guys, and that is familiarity. You want guys who know the culture. You want guys who know the coaches, right? If you're bringing a guy to be a backup corner, which Vildor is going to be, he's obviously, hopefully not going to be a starter unless he becomes a superstar overnight. You really don't want to, I think he's a good, solid player, but you really don't want to rely on him to be your number one corner in a really tough wide receiver heavy NFC. He's there as a depth guy. And when you have a depth guy, you want him, if he has to play, if his number is called, certain personnel packages, you want a guy who can go in there, who knows the assistant coach that he's working with, his position coach, who knows the culture. Because in those situations, a lot of times it's those depth guys, it's those backup guards, it's those backup linebackers, those backup corners. If they get a little freelancy, right? If they don't understand the system, if they make mental mistakes, that's how teams get knocked out of the postseason, right? That's how teams lose on the title windows. The Buffalo Bills are a phenomenal example of this. They lost a lot of winnable playoff games the past couple of years because a couple key depth guys made big mistakes at the wrong moments. They lost winnable games. And now, as NFL fans are very well aware of, it looks like the Bills' title window may have already ended. The Lions are taking a different approach. They're saying, all right, listen, we know this is our title window. So we're going to not necessarily get the biggest name, the most talented DB available to add us another depth piece. We're going to bring in a guy that Dan Campbell knows, that the entire locker room knows, that fits into our culture because obviously he played the last few games with us, so we understand what he brings to the table. But more importantly, our new DB's coach, Townsend, knows him as well, knows his strengths, knows his weaknesses, knows what situations to put him in, and Vildor knows exactly what Townsend expects from corners. Again, it's all about familiarity because at this point, you're just trying to raise the floor of any potential negative outcomes that could happen if you play backups, right? Because you're a title team. The only thing that can prevent you from winning a title is bad, surprising things coming up at the wrong times, right? That's what happened to the 49ers. They lost to the Chiefs because they made a couple bad mistakes at the wrong time. They ended up not winning that game. I think you could argue the Detroit Lions lost to the 49ers in a very similar way. The re-signing of Vildor allows the Lions to once again elevate their floor in terms of the defensive backfield. Familiarity reduces mistakes. Continuity reduces mistakes. The rest of the team and the rest of the coaching staff is talented enough to carry them where they need to be. But the addition or re-signing, of Vildor, again, reduces some of the risk, and that is critically important when you're in your title window.
Yeah, Nick, and you look at a guy like Vildor, there's a couple of other aspects to like about him. As you said, you don't want this guy, you're not signing him to be the number one corner on your team or starting corner. But he adds some value in a couple different ways, specifically in things GM Brad Holmes was looking for. He talked earlier this offseason about he wanted corners that were able to tackle, and Vildor is very good tackler. He had a 70s and all of his grades, high 70s PFF grade tackling all last season. And he's a good pass rusher and run stopper as well. Run defense last season, 83.7, pass rush, 74.9. So this is a guy that can come off the edge and either, rush the passer or stop the run. Not something that's crucially important in a corner, but added bonus here. This is just talking about some possible strengths of Vildor. And like you said, we talked about this, intimately familiar with the Shea Townsend. I think there's some trust there because in Chicago, he played the most snaps of his career under Townsend, just over 800 snaps in 2021 with Townsend as the DB coach in Chicago. So I think this was a great move by the Lions. A couple different fronts. So like you said, the familiarity, there's some added value in there of some things that he can bring to the run defense pass rush game, and he's a sure tackler. I think it's a good move overall by the Lions, and this is a guy that can really come in the clutch late in the season if he has to.
And it's this strategy. I call it the New England Patriots strategy because they made just did a million moves like this during their 2-decade dominance in the NFL. And everybody, of course, and rightly so, focused on the Bradys and the Gronks and, of course, the stars that made up the Patriots dynasty. But what really made New England tick and made them so good, that made them so dangerous in the playoffs, is that they weren't terrible anywhere. Even when they had to play backups due to injuries, their backups were never a dumpster fire. They could always tackle. They were always smart. They always knew the system. And that made the Patriots so tough to beat because late in the season and in the postseason, injuries happen. People are banged up. You got to throw a backup in there. And sometimes these backups, if they're new to a team, if they're an undrafted rookie, you got to throw in there. Mistakes happen. Big plays happen. And those in season so quickly. A guy like Vildor, he's been around the block. He's played a lot of snaps in his NFL career, like you alluded to. He played a lot of snaps for Coach Townsend, like you also alluded to. He's been in Detroit, right? There's so much familiarity. There's so much continuity. You can put him in a game, and look, obviously, talent-wise, productivity-wise, he's not in there to be an elite corner, far from it, but he's not a guy that will totally screw the pooch for you. And it's those kind of players, like if they're put in the game that just end your season, are so commonplace in the National Football League. That's why I love the Lions bringing Vildor back, especially when you consider, of course, what had to happen with Sutton. I think this is one of the more underrated moves the Lions have made this offseason. And I think if and probably when Vildor will have to play, Brad Holmes will be vindicated for this smart decision.
Data brokers sell your information to scammers, spammers, and anyone else who may want to target you. Your full name, email, home address, health records, even your relatives. It's all out there. That's why we use Aura, the sponsor of today's video. Aura shows us which data brokers are selling our information and automatically submits opt-out requests for us.
Cleaning up our information not only reduces the amount of that stupid spam we all get, but it also protects us from hackers who could use this information to help them access our social media accounts, bank accounts, and other sensitive information. Aura also does much more to protect us and our families from online threats. We also get features like antivirus protection, VPNs, password management, parental controls, identity theft insurance, and more without having to download several different apps. That's really key. One location, get all this great stuff. It's really easy to set up. And the best of all, we get everything at one affordable price.
And you may already have one or two of these tools already, but not having Aura is like locking the front door and leaving the back door wide open. Aura is always on, doing the hard work to keep you safe so you can focus on other tasks and have peace of mind. We value our privacy and we value yours. You can go to aura.com/Saturday to start your 2-week free trial. Also, link below in the description. Again, aura.com/Saturday for your free 2-week trial.